Hello and welcome to episode 82 of the Crate and Crowbar, a PC gaming podcast. I'm Marsh Davis and this is being recorded on the 3rd of March. I'm joined by Chris Thurston.
Hi.
Tom Senior.
Hello.
And very special guest, Alex Wiltshire.
Hello.
Formerly of Edge Magazine, now of Hello Games, and general video gaming dilettante, I believe.
That's right.
How dare you?
I've got that on a card.
Now this particular date is very special because it will go down in history as the very date that Valve did not announce Half-Life 3 on, despite the protestations of Reddit. GDC, meant to be a Valve talk today, but it isn't. That was a lie.
There's a man talking about technology.
Yeah, and Reddit got very excited and
About
thought
physics,
that was...
isn't it? It's a talk about physics.
Which just happens to be on at 3 p.m.
Yeah.
on the 3rd of March. Yeah.
I mean, it's enough for me.
Well, if it does turn out to be Half-Life 3, we'll cleverly edit in a rapturous, excited response to that, but it isn't, unfortunately.
In many ways, the real winner here is, well, the would-be science of numerology, which is taken up, it's gotten quite deeply rooted in an otherwise self-proclaimed rational part of the internet, the belief that numbers can be interpreted or swapped around or reinterpreted to gesture at some future event.
Big mix-up, though, since Lombardi, so it's not that. But Valve VR is going to be there. Valve VR. Valve VR? Vive.
Vive.
As it's going to be called.
Vive uses the No Man's Sky font.
Does it really?
Yeah, on the
Those
trailer.
bastards.
Yeah. But that's HTC, though, isn't it?
Huh.
Yeah, it's more like it's HTC VR more than Valve VR, isn't it? Because Valve are doing the middleware kind of Steam VR stuff that will link that up to the rest of the Valve infrastructure. I mean, it's unclear how much they've actually had a hand in developing the hardware itself, though obviously they did have a tech department with Michael Abrash heading it up, doing a lot of experimentation in this area for many years.
But then software and hardware are very, very, very linked on this one, though.
Yeah, it seems that way. So, yeah, I guess there was But, yeah.
Do we know any more about it since last week?
There was a trailer where a man stood and looked at things while another man said things and no information was conveyed.
That trailer was all about people looking at things, which I think speaks for a wonderful interactive future ahead of us.
Yeah.
It was, something along the lines of imagine looking at a thing, but what if that thing wasn't a real thing, but was a virtual thing, presenting virtual things.
I saw a great thing today. I think I posted it into our chat room, which was a animation, or it was a GIF, but it was from an animation, which was actually a stop motion animation of a 3D printed polygonal model or sequence of 3D polygon. So they built this thing in a 3D program, then printed it out in different stages of its animation hundreds of times, then shot it with a stop motion camera.
I think that's totally worthwhile.
Yeah. Not a waste of anybody's time.
That is more or less the only way of making...
It did look really nice.
Like virtual reality headsets look like an efficient way of delivering an experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
We know that a few little details come out, like it will measure your movements in a 15 by 15 foot square space.
I don't know what
With two base stations.
What's the purpose of that though? You can only, unless you have to clear a room and then walk
I
around
think Valve, so when you buy one, I think Valve come to your house and then they like just strip out some walls, maybe some ceilings, and they recreate one of the rooms, the lab from Half-Life 2.
And every game from now will be set in that same lab, or in a similar 15.
And your
by
cat
15.
can become the head crab.
I think what's going to happen is that everyone's going to bear witness to the cutscene, the kind of cut moments from Nightmare, that ancient series about fake VR, where obviously it's all shot in one very small room, but there'll be a point where you have to take off your headset and reset yourself where the thing wants you to go, and then pretend you're, put the headset back on and pretend you're entering a new room from a doorway.
Every 3 paces.
Yes, every 3 paces, which they inevitably did to make that TV show work, and we will all be doing for the next 2 years, thanks to VR.
They missed a trick though. They should have made the headset look like a head crab. Wouldn't that be perfect?
Yeah,
maybe there'll still be
it's a faceplate, like
especially.
I
mean, it seems likely that what Valve want to do is the same thing they want to do with these Steam machines, which is to own the basic technology and more specifically own the distribution network for the software. So when you put on your HTC or whoever manufactured helmet, you are using Steam to get software for it, at which point Valve make loads of money and don't bear the responsibility for the service ultimately. which is kind of what Valve would do in this situation. So a lot of people are getting quite excited by the possibility that this is the technological paradigm shift that allows Half-Life 3 to exist. Because the argument there being the reason Half-Life 3 hasn't happened is
They
because...
need to wait for new technology.
Yeah, Half-Life 2 is physics and Half-Life 3 is what exactly? So this would be it.
Standing in your room,
Yeah.
looking at things.
It's nightmare. Half-Life 3 is a nightmare.
It's nightmare,
Calling
yeah.
it right now.
Yeah, or it doesn't work at all, and you put it on, and some people from Valve come around your house, and they act out Half-Life 3 for you in real life, and allow you to pretend that it's actual virtual reality, but it's just Chet Falazek in a costume, dancing in your living room.
I would pay for that.
Yeah, me too.
That'd be great.
Yeah, the other news from GDC, although it's hardly over yet, so maybe there'll be more exciting announcements, but the other big thing that was announced today was that Unreal Engine is sort of going free, by which they mean free at the point of use, but actually they take 5% of any gross profits from any successful game. But that's still kind of, I think, pretty exceedingly generous.
After
really.
$3,000, I think, as well. Like, you can, like...
Yeah.
Oh, really? If you
Yeah.
make less than that? Wow,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
Which
is good.
It's completely within reach for anybody to make a game.
But that's pretty impressive, I think. I don't know how they've managed to swing that, but I guess they've just got money hats after years and years and years of selling engines to subpar third-person shooters.
Does it not seem a little bit keen in the way that, like, previously the Unreal Engine has been licensed directly to publishers as the engine that they should use? So, like, whereas now they're going to EA have Frostbite and Valve have Source 2. And
Oh, I see, yeah.
A lot of companies have their own engines, and now Unreal can't be this kind of middleware company, and they've got to go out and be ingratiate themselves with the next generation of game developers.
They've also got to compete with Unity, which basically filled in the bottom end of the market, and they know that they cannot compete with that.
Yeah, Unity announced some kind of version of
5.
free today, didn't they? Which
There's Unity 5 came out today, and it is more free than it was, but I can't remember the details. I think that there's a free version of it which has many more features than it used to.
what the fuck's Crytek going to do now?
What are Crytek doing?
I don't know.
I mean, Rise was basically an advert for that engine.
Yeah.
It was just look at...
Actually, Crytek are really into free-to-play games now. Warface was the last thing.
Oh,
they
yeah,
released.
that's true, yeah.
Yeah. It'd be interesting if Unreal Engine became like the de facto technology for, startup indie development in the way that Game Maker once
Unity,
was.
yeah.
So that every indie game from now on, no matter how much of a coma your character's in, is kind of like glossy industrial surfaces and people made of rubber.
Unity's already got that status, but then it depends. It's all about the kind of development interface, I think, because I think Unreal's is really nice to use.
Yeah, it was back in the day. I have no idea what it's like now.
Yeah, no, it's good. But it's like, yeah. But then, I think Unity's been catching up with Unreal in terms of kind of real-time graphics. So.
I say that I complained snarkily about this on Twitter, but the lower that barrier to entry gets to producing kind of like a superficial level of kind of graphical realization, the more shit games will be bought by people on early access, and it's already a problem. Like, people can turn out a fairly kind of decent looking Unity game, and you're just using kind of assets they bought from the Unity store, and you look at that, and because you have nothing more to go on it than maybe a video and a Kickstarter and some screenshots, you go, ooh. Well, these guys, they've clearly been able to put some models into a world and you can walk around it. That must mean that they can make games, because that was always used to be the case.
Yeah.
But now it isn't. Now anybody can do that stuff, and the rest of the game is shit.
Hopefully, that and literally everything else that's happened will make people more careful about what they back on Kickstarter or Greenlight. You'd think.
Yeah. But possibly not.
No.
Have you guys played the new Unreal Tournament?
I have not yet. Quite interested in doing so.
me too. I've not played it.
I have. It's quite good, but a lot of it's exactly like the old Unreal Tournament, to the extent that the levels that they've released with it are exactly the same. Like, not even, like, they're just white box versions of the same levels. They're not.
But this is because it's got this ambitious community developed thing, right?
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that's the way it's going to stay. I'm just saying at this stage of development, it was kind of like a real strange nostalgia trip, because it almost exactly replicates what I remember of Unreal Tournament, especially the levels, but not weirdly the kind of the feel of any of the weapons. The weapons, like, I don't know if I've just misremembered how those games played, but like map flow and stuff like that feels very similar. but all the weapons now seem to like kill within a shot. And it's really kind of like, maybe I was playing with too many people on a server, but it's really digital. Like, do you remember it being? I remember.
Yeah.
Was it not kind of a bit more like an exchange of fire? I know if you hit somebody straight on with a flak shell, they'd pop. But
It was with, like, there were a lot of all rocket launchers all the time maps going on in UT, and I remember a lot of those because that was all about, like, slow-moving projectiles and getting out of the way, and those were exchanges. But the, what's, like, the sniper rifle and, in Quake 3, what's the beam? The
Railgun.
Yeah, railgun, yeah. I mean, that was like, if you were a Twitch expert, that was instant death. It always was.
Like the shot combo was lethal. That was a single hit kill.
oh yeah, that still is. It looks amazing as well.
And I mean, I guess the only things that weren't would be like the rapid damage over time weapons, like the plasma gun
beam thing.
Yeah, that killed. But like, I do remember, my memory of it is it being a very lethal game.
No, maybe I just misremember that. Maybe it's been polluted by Halo or something in my memory.
And possibly also just the fact that the people that are playing it at the moment is quite a self-selecting group. They're probably all people who are quite good at it.
There's always instant respawn as well. It was always about getting killed and dipped and watching your dead bits of flesh and then instantly going back into. It wasn't quite fast turnaround.
Yeah, and on the levels that they have worked up into kind of fully graphics things, that engine can do the business. You know, it really
It can
does
really make a space station from a nondescript sci-fi universe.
I don't even know that it's a space station. It's on Earth, and it's like the world's nicest looking power plant. It's really lovely. All these kind of white glossy surfaces, really soft, lovely afternoon light, looking over this beautiful valley. I don't know why everybody's in there
Why are
killing
they
each
fighting?
other. I don't know.
You could be watching the sunset.
It's a tournament. It's not unreal to sit around
Smoke
and
up
have
a doobie.
Yeah.
It should be though. That would be cool. But yeah, I haven't had more constructed thoughts about it than that, because the game is not constructed itself yet. Really.
Is this the first time it's actually been arguably playable, or has it
Been playable for a while now.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But it's really interesting, the stuff. I think they're pulling designs for just the weapon models and stuff like that straight from the community. And I think there's some kind of reimbursement strategy thing going on. I don't know quite how it works, but the work that they've accepted into the game is really good. Like, it's not, obviously it's attracted people who aren't just fans. It's attracted people who have skills as well, which isn't always the case with these community-driven developments. But anyway.
There are a few games like this popping up, though, in Steam Early Access, some of which are quite good.
Yeah, the return of the arena shooter is an actual thing, which is nice.
Really happening, yeah.
I played Toxic as well, actually, this week, in order to compare it, which is strange because it actually, in some ways, feels more like Unreal Tournament circa 2004 than Unreal Tournament does, because it has vehicles and it has those kind of larger scale battles that you remember from those games. But I don't know, you have to pay for that, and there's not that much more in it. In fact, there's probably less in it in terms of the actual levels that you can play on, although they are more kind of obviously arted up and stuff.
I've been enjoying Reflex.
Oh yeah,
which is very much Quake 3 actually, I think. But I think there's a huge amount of the pleasure of movement in those games. The extraordinary speed at which you move around and the instant change of direction, jump pads and rocket jumping up into locations like the sense of motion in Reflex really nails what I remember loving about old school arena shooters. Though it's not worth buying at the moment because the servers are so underpopulated. Like, there's only 1 or 2 people on a given server and not many maps at the moment, but there's so much potential actually. They clearly understand what makes, barreling around those levels feel fun. Which is great.
What have you been playing, Alex?
I'm playing God of Deer, the Deer God. Deer God.
Dear God.
Yeah.
Dear God.
Dear God.
But with a double E?
Yeah, all about the mammal. Ruminants.
You say that with a kind of weary resignation. It suggests
deer.
that you're perhaps not as interested in deer as this game is.
Well, it has a nice logo. Has a nice kind of antler bedecked logo. And I thought, that sounds good, Dear God.
Yeah.
A nice little pun. With a promise of heavy, thought behind it. It is a weird pixel platformer thing where you explore as a deer, a kind of North America. Very strange geography of North America where you can go from kind of desert to kind of Alaska in a few moments. But it's not awfully good. So the story is that this starts off with you as a hunter, and you die, and this god of deer comes along and wants me as a hunter to make penance from all the terrible deer killing that I've done over my deer killing career, and I come back to life as a deer.
Oh, how ironic!
And
What
within
a sense of
just
irony.
a few moments, I've got a fetch quest to find a monocle.
Yes, because that's what deer do.
I mean,
as well as
well
foraging
known
for
for the
berries and things.
And fleeing.
single eye glass finding capabilities. Yeah, so like, and it's got this, it's pixel graphics in that your deer is a pixel and it's in this sort of, side-on
What, one
fixed
pixel?
view. Just a single pixel. This side-on view, but, of a kind of, if you imagine, Minecraft viewed from the side, from a very fixed perspective, and it sort of, goes along. It's got this mixture of the size of the pixels of your deer, and then these larger pixels on these kind of on the environment, and in the background you've got different size pixels for things like the moon and the stars and the sun and things. And I find it really annoying. You're going to go for pixels; it's all got to be the same size pixel in my book.
Oh, that's just squares.
Yeah.
This is all squares. Yeah, this is a deer square game.
So are the pixels actually different sizes, or are they just at different distances from the camera because they're actually voxels?
They're different sizes because the environment is actually 3D.
Yeah.
So you're looking this thing, and sometimes when you stop moving, the camera zooms in on you. So therefore your deer pixels get bigger, and then but at a different kind of
Ratio?
ratio
Oh, right.
to the environment around you. Because some of the environment juts out towards the camera a little further than the other bits, and then the stuff behind doesn't tally with all that. And pixel graphics they're a form. They are all about a 2D screen, about what you can do with that. And I think the most beautiful pixel graphics are those that kind of adhere really tightly to that idea. Where it's about layers of things, but not but where the pixel is this kind of set grid that it defines everything that you're seeing visually. But here, pixels is just spotty things that it's showing at different sizes depending on where the camera is, and there's no rigour to that to me.
Yeah, I can see why they do it from a production perspective, though.
It's easy. Easier.
But that's the reason that pixels have taken on again indie games. It's not just that it's an aesthetic; it's because it's much easier to animate a pixel sprite, which only has 32 by 32 pixels, and it is.
Dear God, it's interesting because it actually markets the game on the basis of pixels. Like I think in the first line of the kind of Steam store page, it's kind of a pixel adventure. I think something like that.
Oh yeah.
So
I do quite like the way it looks. I'm afraid. It's like
it's got the beautiful light. I agree with that.
Yeah. Looks. It's all about the lighting conditions and the kind of the sense of place that it manages to conjure from what are kind of fairly crudely drawn pixel graphics, I think. Really.
So considering you think so basically it looks good considering.
Yeah, okay,
and that's good enough for you. That's fine.
I'm not saying I like the game. No, yeah. I don't know. How far did you get it?
I got confused. I actually read. You wrote a very nice piece for the rock paper and the shotgun.
Wasn't that nice?
Well, it wasn't. It wasn't
slightly mean.
I think totally fair though, because you pointed out that it had this sort of roguelike element where you were searching these looping kind of randomly generated environments for certain things. And that completely went over. I had no idea what I was just running right. I was running and running and running. It has quite a nice sense of movement. So your bounce, the sort of the way that the bounce kind of goes up and kind of decays back down. It's quite nice. But I was just running and running and running, occasionally finding a bean in a bush, being killed by snakes and spiders.
Yeah, the combat in it I didn't really enjoy very much.
Terrible. You deer butt them. Or you throw fireballs. I mean,
yeah. Do you use the fire flower for that? What is that?
You need to unlock a certain number of statues before you become empowered with the power of the deer god, which is
But of course,
fireballs.
But of course, the fireballs is part of the morality system.
Sorry, that's right.
The deer morality system. Did I not explain this before?
You
there's
explained
a
the
deer
monocle.
morality.
You left the monocle hanging like 5 minutes ago. I'm still worried about that.
So the monocle, an old man, has lost his monocle. And he asked me to go to see him in his
How
cave.
did he ask you? You're a deer.
Well, all these people, so you keep coming across these characters, these humans, who say, sort of, I don't know why I'm talking to you, but I feel that I can talk to you, dear. Can you go find my monocle? And things like that. It's very strange.
And then you exit his house and the monocle's right next to it. And you go,
It's literally in the
there-
bush outside his
There
door.
you go.
But
So,
hang on. So in your previous life as a hunter, is this set in a world where everyone is getting deer to help them with things all the time, and you're just a gigantic prick? You're the only guy killing these helpful animals that understand English and will fetch things for you.
I guess so.
Yeah.
yeah, this is, yeah. But also, but there's a...
Although other deer do try and kill you, so maybe there's
What?
kind of like
only if you
internecine
anger the deer.
warfare.
Like if you
If
butt
you-
them.
If you bang their misses,
Yeah.
they come after you.
I beg your
No
pardon.
way, really? No,
Yeah.
they not. Well, maybe not. Maybe in the early access version.
Oh, really?
I think that was a feature of the early. Jealous deer was like.
Yeah, no, I
something
thought.
to
Well, I
top
thought.
the features list.
I might have been wrong, but I thought that was what was triggering it. If you rut with enough.
So
You can rut?
You have
Oh,
sex
saying
with
the
Lady
other
Deer.
kind, right.
You have sex with Lady Deer, and that's your save point.
What? Really?
So
Yeah.
basically, you stand next to a lady deer, and his heart fills up because everyone knows that deer love is also represented by the heart. And
Very chaste form of
And then
romantic.
it's
So, okay, fine. So you're not actually... Okay, fine.
and then so basically, then if you die, you come back as your little baby deer. You know,
So how many...
save point.
Are you not diluting the amount of human hunter in the
Yeah.
more of a deer over time?
Well, it's not really.
This is now perplexing me.
The
yeah, I
human
think you
granddad
are.
gets
Metaphysically, I think it might have a few problems, but also mechanically, because I think you only get that save point if the baby deer survives, and like it follows you.
It does, yeah.
And yet, obviously, its pathfinding is terrible, so it'll plummet off the nearest edge.
Yeah, the best way of killing
That is,
anything is to run away from it, and then it falls off into a pit of spikes. Yeah.
And then you
But
lost
that is
your save
accurate
point.
according to deer behaviour. Like, I think
Actually, that's the most realistic thing in the
It
game.
is
Yeah.
probably, yes.
Although the fact that you then can't reincarnate as that dead baby deer is probably not quite an accurate
Also, how did you pick up the
representation.
monocle?
Yeah. You don't have opposable thumbs.
Do you have an inventory?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
Amazing.
I had some beans. I didn't have a monocle. I'd use that monocle. I had a mushroom. I had all sorts of things.
I don't understand anything anymore.
Also, I conjured up a tortoise and I stood on its back.
What,
Did you? Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't
That's
get
what-
that far. That must have been a real
Late-
pro play.
Late game, end game shit.
This is alt. That's what happens.
So yeah, I wouldn't recommend Dear God, but it's good.
So can we back up
Oh.
to the
Is that
moral
something I haven't
fireballs?
understood? Yeah, so I think it's as simple as if you beat up deer
Right.
or rabbits, not porcupines. Porcupines,
There.
apparently,
Fuckers.
they are fuckers.
And you can
But
kill
are
them
they
with
fuckers?
impunity.
They're just spiny. They're not actually aggressive in IRL. Life.
I don't know. I've never met a porcupine before. Although I did have a close encounter with a porcupine on the savannas of Africa.
Oh my God.
Really?
What happened?
True. Yeah. Well,
Did it offer to find something for you and you just kicked the shit out of it?
I'd lost my monocle, and it was very late at night, and everybody else in the camp had gone to bed, and it was just me and my friend out, and and the dogs just went fucking mental. Like the dogs in the camp were just barking, completely crazy. So we thought probably time to just go to bed now, get inside a tent, because obviously that's impervious to attack from clawed animals.
Yeah, lions, they really they can't do tens.
Foxed by it.
And but unfortunately, both we've been drinking heavily. We both really badly needed a piss. So he kind of stood back to back and pissed in either direction, kind of slowly spinning,
Amazing.
checking the horizon.
John Woo having a piss.
There was some kind of rustling in the bushes. We just kind of cacked ourselves. Well, not literally cacked ourselves.
You're not doing something back to back.
And dived into our tent. And apparently it was a porcupine. So the guys told us the next day. So we weren't. But we thought we were,
So you pissed on a
imminently going to
porcupine?
be mauled by
Or
lions.
pissing in opposite directions.
yeah, it wouldn't
But
have been,
spinning as well, so the wee was...
Yes, exactly. I thought it was quite effective. They don't cross. I was releasing important pheromones to prevent their lie attack.
That whole story makes more sense to me than anything Alex has said about this game.
Yeah, it does.
So
make
explain
more sense.
fireballs.
You press the B button.
Oh yeah, but if you kill good animals, then
Yeah.
you become evil and you get evil powers.
Yeah, and if you have good powers, you
Jedi
can
Knight.
move blocks about. Oh yeah, because there's block pushing puzzles in it as well.
Oh yeah.
Why
For some reason. I don't know what's difficult to understand about this.
The thing is, all of it sounds quite daring and inventive, let's say, because I can't say the other word. Now you've described it to me back, like,
It's insane.
yeah, you're right.
It's surprisingly you kind of accept, well, of course there's a morality system because I could kill the bunny and I should be punished for that. But if I kill the snake, that's fine. But I don't know why the porcupines are, they're fine.
Is this perhaps like a refreshing return to the era when platforming, side-scrolling 2D games were just completely batshit and you were just forced to accept any nonsense premise? If you were, say, an M&M that had legs.
Zool.
Oh, yeah.
Cool spot.
Or Zool,
Yeah.
the green ninja, and sometimes their pet dog who had 2 heads and was involved in amazing breakout missions.
But that has a kind of naivety to it in that it's for children, whereas this is a morality tale about hunting, but also a block.
I think it's got a message. I get the feeling there might be a message in there somewhere, something about... Actually, the Steam page does say something about it being something that would challenge your religion, or was it?
Yeah, that's a quite a bold claim.
But if
Because
deers have gods,
there was a sad vicar, and I led. What did I do? There was a couple kissing, and I did something to them. I knocked the man had a rose or something in his hand, and I knocked the rose out of his fist accidentally.
Oh dear.
fucking deer.
And then that caused this couple to follow me, and I took them back to this church that the sad reverend was in, saying, "I haven't got a flock," and I brought them to him. So that might be the religious element.
But
Zool had a message, and the message was, Chupa Chups. You should probably eat them.
yeah,
A more
Right,
coherent
one
message, actually, in many ways, and more challenging to my religion than that of the deer god.
Alex, this sounds like bollocks. Like, is it not just total bollocks? Are there any redeeming kind of qualities to it?
There's I like the way that your deer ages. So if you keep your deer alive,
Amazing.
you it sort of grows up from a little baby deer into a great big stag.
A big
which is,
hoary deer.
I'd say that's the nicest thing about it. The rest of it's rubbish. Particularly, I kept not because it has the lighting system, which is quite beautiful often, but it means that you can't see things like spikes.
Oh yeah.
And snakes and things.
Good dynamic weather though, as far as, considering.
I don't understand what humans' relationship with deer is in the world in which this is set, other than follow the deer.
Well, all of them seem to want to fucking kill you the second they see you as well, which is crazy. Pass by just some people hanging around in some kind of Western saloon. I don't know why there would be deer running through the desert there, but you do. So everybody starts fucking killing you.
Why? So you're also a cowboy.
Well, no, but you do pass by cowboys
There are,
in one
because
of
it's set in
many
America, and everyone knows that
inexplicable-
in America there's the American West.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reminds me of one of my favourite stories about deers partially getting in the way of organised religion, which is about... I don't know how apocryphal this is, but it's obviously very apocryphal.
I
But
hope so.
it's a story I heard all of the time growing up, because I grew up in Salisbury, and Salisbury Cathedral is in the worst possible fucking place to build a cathedral, and that's why it's sinking constantly. Like, it basically floats on a marsh, and is constantly tipping one way or the other. It's way too big to be on this place, and so the scaffolding that kind of like rotates around Salisbury Cathedral constantly to kind of presumably just push it back in the direction it's not falling over in.
Way down this end, it might.
Yeah, exactly. It really is like that, because it doesn't really have foundations, it just floats, pretty much. And they added that
Because
spire.
rocks floats really well.
Well, it's really wide base, but they added a spire later on, so that's why it's tipping over. But the reason it's there is because Old Sarum, which is the town on the hill where it makes sense, not in the river valley with 5 rivers in it that's really damp and floods all the time. Old Sarum was overpopulated, so apparently in the early 10th century, something like that, someone fired an arrow from the top of Old Sarum to find out where the foundations for the new cathedral should be laid. and the arrow hit a deer, who then bolted and died in a swamp. And in a final fuck you to the forces that had killed it, it inspired the founding of a cathedral in literally the worst possible fucking place.
It does feel like there's a relationship with that and Dear God.
You know what I mean? This is sort of like pricks. That deer said, "Hope it sinks." Didn't know.
What have you been playing, Chris?
So, I can't really talk about anything I've been playing, and I will be able to next week. But for some reason, even after spending most of the last podcast going on about why I don't like Evolve, I played like another 4 or 5 hours of Evolve, almost out of nerves. Like, I felt like I was a bit of an outlier, and people just saying, I think this is a really bad game. And I played it with Pip. Pip didn't like it, but the reviews were still quite positive. And I was kind of worried as the day approached when the podcast was going to come out that I had missed something huge or been really mean.
Had you been objectively wrong about this objectively, educated
yeah, because
medium?
as we all know, games criticism is an objective medium that just everybody in it fails to live up to.
Just tell me the facts.
Yeah, exactly. Just what are the facts, eh?
Had you missed a bullet point?
I don't know. But I was waiting for the moment where it clicked. And so I played more of it, and more of it, and more of it. And in some ways felt that kind of compelled to go back out of some kind of weird curiosity. And I fucking hate it.
Yay! I don't know. Is that
no,
good?
I was right, is the answer.
Right.
Like, I keep playing it, and it keeps being dumb. Really. It doesn't matter. I've seen a bit more configurations of player incompetence or hunter incompetence and monster incompetence arranged in different ways. I've seen the hunters do something slightly different, where they actually holed up in one location and waited for the monster rather than chasing it pointlessly around the map. That didn't fucking work. No.
Oh.
That just allowed the monster to level up as much as it wanted, and then it came back and killed everybody, because it was the bullshit monster that no one likes that can go invisible. No one knew what to do about that. I've played as the monster, where you just run around and you feel stressed, and then some people kill you. I played the campaign mode, where you play 5 missions in a row, and the idea is it adds up to kind of like a meta score. And for some reason, when you lose a game, the next map is balanced against you, which means that if you're already losing, the next one is harder, which doesn't make any sense. The only reason that's there is because somebody liked the idea of there being a knock-on system where one match influences the next one, but it makes no sense for the winners to disadvantage themselves, because then they wouldn't want to win. So they did it the only way around. The only way around that high-level idea makes sense, but it just turns out it's a bad idea. So that's that. Yeah. Fuck it, really.
Well, good that you were right, and you had indeed wasted 10 to 15 hours of your life.
Yep, confirmed.
Yeah, it's weird playing it. I played like 3 times at preview events, and had an annoying time 90% of the time. I had one good defense as the monster, where I found a bridge and kind of flamed it, and that was really exciting. But the rest of the time was just being annoyed at having to chase a thing through these boring grey environments and never being able to see it or quite catch it, and then having these really unsatisfying whittling down giant health bars, which I always hate anyway. Like, I like decisive combat, I like, I don't like whittling down a thing over the course of 45 minutes.
It's interesting. I've been playing Monster Hunter on the new Monster Hunter on 3DS, like pretty much obsessively for the last 2 weeks, and that is, you don't even see the health bar, and it gets whittled down really slowly.
Yeah, I've been playing it as well.
Have you?
I have.
But it is like it's tighter though. Like you don't have to chase after somebody trying to save themselves, and your monster will stay in front of you for a while, and there's always a skill that takes care of something that you might not like.
I've always been amazed that there hasn't been, like Monster Hunter's never strayed into the PC sphere.
Oh yeah, there's Monster Hunter
so
Online.
should.
I think it might have been Japan only, but there has been a PC version.
There's a Monster Hunter Online that's coming, I think, that might make it
really?
the West is. MMO.
Just because it really sells you on the kind of fantasy that should be the Evolve fantasy, although obviously you don't play the monster there. The idea of tracking something, which is a formidable creature with kind of intelligence and many means of defending itself and emergent behaviour depending on what you do to it, like that's really exciting. There's not that many games that have even attempted to just mimic that, and it seems ripe for the stealing.
There's something about it that I think I think that the Monster Hunter thing, and I think this is why there haven't been this kind of this drive to put it online, is that I think that it's a 4-person team, and it's like its home is on handhelds that are about people being physically close and talking to each other, like in the same room, and so like the 3DS version doesn't even have voice chat on it. It's perfectly possible on the machine, but it doesn't have voice chat. So basically, I've been playing it with Skype on my phone, and which is great. It works fine, but it's this is a game that's meant to be about turning up to somewhere and playing with people. And I think that's like the PC thing is like by its nature, distributed. But then they put it on consoles. It's been on Wii U and whatever.
I just think the crafting mechanics, the amazing progression in Monster Hunter is just gold on the PC. I just like PC gamers just. Anyone who's played an MMO would love that.
That's the part I want them to leave behind.
Actually, no. It's like when you're getting stuff, and like it isn't every item that you find has a purpose, which is something that you make, and you are hunting for certain things. When you get to a certain level, you want certain items, and that means when you see that beast, you're going to want. You might go, okay, I need to break its beak, and to break its beak, I need to get a hammer, which forces you to use a hammer. And each of the different weapons, and there are something like 12, 15 of them.
And they're extraordinary weapons.
And they're all totally different. Yeah. So the hammer is a completely new discipline. It's so good.
Anyway.
But
I feel the same way about Fire Emblem in terms of formats that aren't on the PC for no good goddamn reason.
Again, it should just be on PC. But I think there's a huge amount of context to what you're doing in Monster Hunter that doesn't exist at all in a multiplayer arena environment. Like, if it's just a 20-minute, 30-minute matchup on a server, like, it has none of that context. And that context is everything in Monster Hunter. Even though there's a lot of skill to fighting, it's all about what you're aiming for, what you're trying to get, how you're trying to kill that thing.
We talked about this last week. The involves failing is that it doesn't distribute interesting objectives on a granular level. It's all really binary at the end of the day. And it's because it's the child of two competing urges. One is to deliver an immersive fantasy, this, hunter or hunted, chasing a monster through the woods, or being the monster stalking the beleaguered human team. It wants to deliver that, but it also wants to be a multiplayer arena game analogous to League of Legends in match length and, accessibility. And you just can't have both. For a competitive game, really competitive games accept that they're going to be abstract to a point. Like, there is no sport that is also like an immersive experience of some kind. You know what I mean? Like, even sports that are derived from immersive experiences like shooting or whatever are heavily abstracted at the point where they become sports, because that's how you measure and judge a sport. And Evolve wants to be both. It's just a basic failing of understanding of the form, really. Like, it's, you couldn't have Olympic shooting take place on a paintball course with everyone pretending to be in the army, because it would be ridiculous.
Works in the Hunger Games. Yeah.
That's not I suppose you're right. Yeah, okay, fine, I'm wrong. Actually, no, though it totally would be better if it was a Hunger Games game. And, I don't know, you played, like, one, and all the players at the start were released into a deathmatch environment where how good your gear was based on whether or not you went for the cornucopia at the start.
See, that's
better game.
You can play that in Minecraft, though.
Yeah, you totally can. Shit. I don't really follow Minecraft.
Do you see the, sorry, slight tangent here, but did anyone see the magnificent picture of Notch on the cover of Forbes?
I did, yeah. Holding a floating brain?
Yeah.
Was that a Photoshop of that? I can't remember.
I'm not sure. The original Forbes cover doesn't have that, but I've seen that picture as well. And, I don't know, I was like...
He looks like the king of money.
Yeah, good on him. I don't feel good on you, Notch.
It's like being Forbes is entirely about money. It's like, it's just saying, hey, Notch, so tell me about how much money you sold that for, and like, what do you do with the money? Oh, you go in on private jets. Yes, well, that's money. Money!
Hooray for Money, the magazine.
I'd love to read, it's the extent to which they cover how he made that money at all, and it's the extent to which they try and realise what Minecraft is, like how Forbes tries to interpret that for its audience. I'd love to just see how they try. Really.
Lots of money.
It's about blocks and people, and they kill pigs, and then they make more blocks, and this is
Microsoft then.
Yeah, but then Microsoft from the shadows. That's good.
What have you been playing, Tom?
I'm playing a game called Homeworld.
I've never heard of that.
I
What
know,
could that be?
we're on the cutting edge here at the Crate and Crowbar. This game that was released in 1999 initially on PC. One of Relic Entertainment's first games. In fact, it might have been their first, actually. Made Homeworld, and then a weird game called Ungodly Creatures, or something about like creating weird animal hybrids in an RTS that no one ever talked about.
I remember that.
Yeah.
It
It didn't go down well.
What was that called? It wasn't Ungodly.
It wasn't Ungodly Creatures, but they weren't. The things you made were ungodly creatures. It was like, put a scorpion tail on a beaver.
Yeah.
And then that's a unit now in your RTS game.
God, shit. What was that called?
Don't know, we'll have to look it up.
It was something creatures. Yeah, show notes.
Fuck.
Before they made, XXX Creatures, they made Homeworld, which is this beautiful game about being in space and doing space war. And, it's a game that has not been bettered in terms of creating beautiful vistas of space battle. And no one has even tried, even though it's the best thing in the world that's ever been made in terms of like just something I want to watch. I want to box select and right click on an enemy army and apply no strategy whatsoever and just watch what the fuck happens. And that game just rewards you beautifully for doing anything, for any sort of attack, even if it's totally suicidal.
Have you seen the Dead End Thrills gallery?
Not yet, no.
Something.
I've been too busy living it, Alex. Too busy in there. So Gearbox have gained the rights to it, and they've done a remaster of it, which means they've just retextured all the ships. They've done a really great job. They've redone all the lighting. They've redone all of the backgrounds, the kind of nebulae that you're kind of floating through and stuff. And all the original music's in there and kind of been oppressed to high quality as well. And it's absolutely just sumptuous in a way that I love space combat in just at a very deep level. I love watching spaceships shoot fucking lasers at each other. And if you like that, then Homeworld, even though it's an incredibly complicated and dense RTS, the sort that would never survive in like a modern market, you should definitely just play it to right click on enemy armies and watch things happen. It's also still a great RTS in its own right, albeit with some bizarre pacing problems, because it's not really acceptable to spend 20 minutes watching things mine asteroids before action happens anymore. But at the same time, I kind of love that about Homeworld, because in the very original Homeworld, Adagio for Strings is playing almost all the time.
Really?
Yeah,
You're in space, that's what space sounds like.
Of course.
They have their own, like, choir.
Space, no one can hear you.
Over the sound of
the string.
They have their own choir doing like a version of Adagio for Strings that's playing throughout the first two missions of the first Homeworld. And Homeworld is actually like a really fucking sad story about a giant boomerang spaceship thing that has to boomerang back fucking home. And they think they found their Homeworld, And, of course it doesn't go right. So they spend many, many years building this enormous craft that's like totally new to humanity, like their race. They've never seen anything of that kind of technology. Then it gently glides out of dock to the sound of Adagio for Strings, and then its enormous engines kind of ignite, and like you're just watching this, and if you like spaceships at all, you're already shitting yourself with joy at watching this beautiful thing gliding out of its docking rig. Then they warp to the kind of their first checkpoint, and the enormous space base they've built to maintain your boomerang after it's done its first jump has been totally wrecked. And then you realise there are other people in the system that you didn't realise were there, and but also friendly races who want to trade with you. And it's telling that in Homeworld, it's one of the few RTSs where in an RTS battle there is a diplomacy option. Where you can ally with like NPC factions who might be in the same vicinity. Because in Homeworld, a battle isn't just like a square battlefield in the way that it was in Total Annihilation. It's a vast, huge expanse of space. You press the spacebar to bop out into a kind of giant radar view that shows you the entire expanse of the battlefield, and you see all your ships as tiny, minuscule things, like peppering, like just little grains of salt, little grains of pepper over there as the enemy. And then you see this vast space and these little kind of glittering asteroids, like, and you look at the battlefield and you think, I need to set up a mining colony somewhere, so I've got to mine for resources, and you've got to send defences there. It's such a brilliant sense of scale to it, and such a brilliant sense of drama and sorrow to it, just like blowing up spaceships.
There's a really good escalation to the campaign as well. Like
it's a great story.
They're both. Does the remastered edition include the sequel?
It does.
Yeah, because it's both games, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
The pair of them are great.
Both campaigns are terrific. And
It has that Battlestar Galactica feel. Is that right as well?
yeah, definitely. But
Yeah, in a way. I guess it's New Battlestar before New Battlestar.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's really accurate. A lot of people who get it's funny kind of reading reactions to it because a lot of people get really annoyed by the incessant adagio for strings all the time. So what they've done is they've modded in the Battlestar Galactica theme tune and all the soundtracks into the background. So
Just wailing and drums.
them. Yeah, exactly. Guys, Boltar quotes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a great thing I always go back to with Homeworld, like, adds little narrative beats or, like, visual things where it's not really necessary. Like, a lot of the missions end with you warping your home ship, the Boomerang, to a new sector. You know, at the end of the episode, basically, you warp out. But your ships do need to dock with it before they can leave as well.
Yes.
So you see that your sort of larger ships, capital ships, are kind of like lining up against it and like folding into hatches in the side of the ship as this portal opens in front of it and it slips through to the next one. And it's like, that, you don't need that really. Like,
that's all new stuff, right? That wasn't kind of...
No, that was in the original game.
Oh, right. Wow.
Yeah. There's loads of detail like that. Like, that's why it's so good, because, like, when a ship is made, you see where it comes from. Like, it flies out of the mothership and goes off and does its business.
In the early missions, there are these, like, cryoslabs or something, I can't remember what they're called, but they're just, floating space labs, which are just basically cryogenically hibernating, humans, and each one represents 100,000 humans. Indeed. And then, in like mission 3, obviously there's a big warp in and a couple of ships come in and start striking them. And like, they're like, defend the cryoslabs. And I was shitting myself because I don't know, for some reason, like the whole universe kind of means something to me. I'm not sure why. But, they were like, okay, you've got to go and destroy these guys and bring these things into your mothership. And so you send out these tiny little bug ships who will go and cling onto either side of these giant cryoslabs and gently kind tug them towards your mothership. And, like the
Tug My Cryoslab.
That's the episode title. The left side of your giant boomerang kind of opens out and like the cryoslabs go into it and they're like 100,000 citizens rescued. But then like inevitably 4 of them get destroyed. And you're like,
shit.
That's like most of my fucking race. What am I going to do now? And you've just got to get to your planet. And there's this sense of desperation in preserving something that goes throughout the campaign, which is preserved by the fact that you literally preserve your units from mission to mission to mission to mission.
Like, it sounds fucking great.
It's amazing. Like, it's still my favourite RTS campaign of all time, I think.
Yeah, it's so good.
I think I did play it, but I played it in the kind of hazy days of PC Gamer cover discs / wares. I don't remember really much about it. Or whether I played the full game or whether I played just like a demo of it.
It's legitimately one of the best RTS games. It's the best kind of combinations of using an RTS to tell a story and actually putting things on the line. Like the way that your mothership is quite powerful and you're forced to push it into danger all the time because it's actually a unit on the battlefield. Like, it's a really good way of actually making the narratively important characters be part of what's important on the battlefield as well.
It's really, it's interesting. The Battlestar comparison isn't just like the high concept of a single ship kind of escorting what remains of humanity through a series of space sectors. It's also in like the dramatic beats that come, in this case, through game mechanics. So, like, has that sense of being sort of desperately trying to survive and, mustering what forces you can against odds at parts. But then when you turn it and you have a really formidable army, it really feels like going to war in a way that other RTSs don't. Like when you jump in your mothership on top of somebody and you realise you're in possession of this huge weapon, basically, and you have your kind of like dreadnoughts and frigates. I see the little face you're doing.
What? Perfectly innocent. You and your huge weapon, Chris.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good feeling. It's a good feeling.
It's a brilliant. There's a button that lets you, because most of the large ships can store fighters, and there's a button that lets you deploy fighters. And so every fighter leaves a beautiful glowing trail as it kind of spirals around the battlefield. When you deploy fighters, you just get this beautiful kind of explosion of like ant-like things going out to destroy your enemies.
Yeah. I remember there being really good skyboxes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes, yeah.
Are they still good?
They've remastered them, so they've gone back to the originals. They said that they were so kind of low res that they couldn't quite tell what they were trying to convey. Were they planets or is that just like a
nebula?
A bit of nebula, yeah. And so they conveyed like first with the original artists and they're going, and it looks fucking beautiful. It's astonishing.
There's a brilliant article which explains how they made the original skyboxes, and although they are very low res, they're actually very innovatively made because they're all vector. Bizarrely, they're not bitmap kind of
big pixely kind of.
Yeah, no.
Orbs,
They do it with kind of like, I don't know, like blending between different colours on certain vectors, and
wow.
There's a good post somewhere that I will send to whoever's editing this to put in the show notes, explaining exactly how they do it.
That's awesome.
It's a good statement in favour of space being a series of emotive pastel colours, as opposed to the colour that space actually probably is.
Now we've walked into the angry red sector. Yeah, it's fantastic, and it's about £27. You get both games with it, and also all the multiplayer is on Steam, and it's like its own client, which lets you fight with all the races from both games in one kind of...
Good multiplayer as well.
Yeah, it is good multiplayer. So I think...
Gearbox. Gearbox.
Yeah, they did a good thing, Alex.
Have they redeemed themselves?
That's every other game.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've got that good a hit rate.
It's some of their games.
The team that were on this did a fantastic job. And I don't think they're a big team at all. I think they teamed up with some old Relic stuff. And
Randy Pitchford's still got the magic. Because he used to be a magician. That's why I said that. It's a little joke.
That's good. It's real good.
Industry humour.
Shall we do questions from questions?
yes.
Good, because I'm holding them. And otherwise I'd look like quite the fool. Finn writes, Dear Gramophone and Cylinder. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Alright.
Didn't they have...
That'd be a record, like a cylinder. Surely the cylinder would be a different playing device.
I suppose the two objects have a relationship with one another. Anyway, I was watching a video of the upcoming Homeworld re-release, which we have discussed, which showed a couple of the in-mission cutscenes, and I realised I had the exact same sequence of sounds, music and dialogue playing back in my head from memory. It made me realise how ingrained the sonic landscape of certain game sequences have become in my psyche, especially games that require the player to repeat sequences frequently. He also doesn't stress, especially games that play Adagio for strings completely endlessly. Games that link gameplay systems to recognisable sounds get bonus points. Can you think of any games with memorable soundscapes? P.S. The single harp string plonk that plays when you enter a new area in Dark Souls is brilliant. Finn.
It is.
Dark Souls is probably one of the big ones.
Got lots of good noises.
Weird noises.
Weird noises.
Some of them made by us while playing them.
Yep. Ah! That was me.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Killed for the 1000th time by the Looking Glass Noise.
The classic Tom noise, we
Yeah.
call it.
Yeah.
There's one like recently, like Far Cry 3. The pause when you hit the pause menu or like the main menu.
Oh yeah.
Is this kind of like sort of generative, kind of thudding, kind of ambient, kind of sound, and it just goes on, and it puts me into a certain not particularly pleasant emotional space every time. It's slightly weird, slightly dreamlike.
I don't remember it at
Slightly,
all.
really, it's probably just affecting me. There's
Can you make the
probably
noise again?
revealing some kind of really repressed psychosis. I don't know what it is. He's kind of a little bit menacing, a little bit kind of, and I hate it. I hate it. I like the game, and I hate it. Like, there's a pause sound.
I like the pause sort of pseudo music usually in all Rockstar games, but particularly in GTA 4. It's weird. It's a strange choice because it's not it's sort of pseudo ambient, I guess. It's not really like a composed melodic piece, but it's kind of sinister, really, and austere, and doesn't really feel like any of the things that they're going for in the rest of the game. But I really like it, and it's really nice just to sit on that map screen and listen to that.
Nice sans serif font as well.
Fonts.
I think for me, I think there's no game, for me, the entirety of the atmosphere and memory of Half-Life 1 is the sounds of that game. 100%.
Oh yeah.
This podcast is called The Crate and Crowbar, but it really could be called the two sounds that those things make in Half-Life. The kind of pong, 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 pong of a crowbar hitting a metal surface. And then the kind of that weird reverby, slightly tinny crunch that crates make. It's not like a
munchy noise.
Yeah, it's not a bassy sound. It's this kind of krantz.
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 Rosenkrantz.
Yeah.
And Gildenbar. Ooh, weird.
It's time to read out that podcast, people.
Yeah. But even the noise that the Vortigants make when they use that kind of or the kind of barking of the hound eyes. That kind of weird
Yeah, slightly pseudo-doggish.
Almost like it's blowing your speakers out. Yeah, like this, because it's not even like
Chirping.
brilliantly high quality sound. It's
No.
just, it's maybe all higher, like it all tonally higher than it should be, maybe, like, or it would be in a modern game where everything is kind of like kicking the shit out of your subwoofer.
Did you see that video where someone replaced all the Half-Life 2 sounds with sounds they made with their mouths?
Yeah. Why did you do that?
And it's weirdly like I think because of the rhythms, because they're all obviously in rhythm with the actual game. And actually, it's surprisingly like familiar, despite the fact that someone's going do 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 and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's the same kind of rhythm. So it's like it's interesting.
Are there any games that are actually a cappella, like that have the soundtracks done entirely by human voices?
Yeah, desktop. Oh God, what was it called? You know that
Desktop Tower Defense.
Desktop
Yeah,
Tower
absolutely.
Defense.
All the shots of pew, 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 pew.
Yeah,
Someone doing that, yeah. I played a lot of that game. The Half-Life 2 Combine Soldiers.
Yeah,
Amazing.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Instantly recognisable.
And the sound of the poison head crab is easily the most terrifying thing, I think, in any game.
I think I've spoken on the podcast before about why they're so terrifying. It's like, their colouring being a particular type of venomous snake as well, that black and red.
Oh, really?
Ribbing on them, yeah.
Huh.
And also, I think the main thing about them is their AI, because they hide from you. They go around corners to get out of your line of sight, and then you have to chase them, at which point they lash onto you, or you run away, in which case they chase you.
What a great game that no one has topped or released a sequel for.
I watched Barbarian Sound Studio the other day as well.
Oh, yeah, I didn't really get on with that. I think people...
First half of it was brilliant, second half was terrible.
Yeah, it's people very excited about the aesthetic or artifice of making sounds for films, and people who are kind of romanced by that idea. But it's otherwise a completely hollow film, I think. Sorry, but you're wrong, guys. You're wrong.
It's worth mentioning Proteus as a game which is entirely about just going through a world and having, all these incidental sound cues forming a weird impromptu soundtrack. So, yeah.
Harry writes, Dear Crate and Crowbar, if you were to get an ill-advised game-related tattoo, what would you pick? I'd go for a Half-Life Lambda with a 3 in the centre. Cheers, Harry.
That's poignant.
Yeah, it is.
Poignant. That's the word for
It would be ill-advised as well.
it. Yes. Yeah, I wouldn't ever get a game-related tattoo.
I would get the SSV Normandy just across my chest. Just all the way across there.
The Superman logo, but
Yeah,
that
just
size
something.
and kind of...
Yeah, actually, no, what I would get is not that. What I would get is Star Wars Galaxies, the logo, on my upper chest, and then underneath that, the dates, 2003 to 2011, and then by the time we're in my belly area, never forget, never forgive. And then I would...
Would you get Raph Koster on your back?
Yeah, just all of a full body portrait of Raph Koster on my back.
How about his head, but superimposed onto the body of a koala?
Or a Wookiee.
I think that would damage the point I was trying to make.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, why not? And then what I would do, hopefully Daybreak, formerly SOE, will have, an equivalent Daybreak Live, the SOE live event, and I'll fulfill my destiny, which is to stage invade a keynote speech at Daybreak Live or whatever it is, knee slide across the stage, rip off my shirt to reveal these front and back tattoos. I probably have to spin it as well to make sure people...
That's tough.
Would you be urinating at the time? Just
No, just weeping.
Okay.
Just weeping. Weeping and screaming.
What have I become?
And then my gibbering, much tasered body will be a document to one of the greatest MMOs ever made.
Shall I show you my Firefall tattoos?
You got Mark Kern's face on a koala on his neck. Because he does have the right to be a present in any medium, including your flesh.
Good. Very good. Question well and truly answered.
Nick writes, Dear CNC, I've heard game critics complain that in large studios and with large publishers, so much of their contract is heavily orchestrated by PR. Interviews become little more than a series of sound bites, and it's difficult to get any information beyond exactly what the marketing departments do or do not want you to know. Peter Molyneux has announced he'll no longer talk to the press. If you can't hear that, one of us who works in game marketing is doing enthusiastic thumbs up.
I'm personally all for that.
Yeah. Peter Molyneux has announced that he'll no longer talk to the press after years of speaking freely about his games having gotten him into trouble. So, are the PR departments of big publishers right to keep their developers on really tight leashes?
As a shill, Alex, would you have a perspective on this?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I think that when developers aren't allowed to talk, you end up with the danger of not being able to sort of say interesting, exciting things about your game. So I think that any publisher that is too controlling is probably making a big mistake.
I think you just identified the exact issue with letting Molyneux talk rather than the people who developed the games.
But it worked incredibly well for Molyneux all the way through, and it's until now really. And actually, if Goddess probably wouldn't be as popular as it is now if he didn't.
But
do the same
Molyneux
job
is
on it.
ultimately a marketeer, and that's what people
that's
fail
what
to
I'm getting for.
note about him. Really, that he's as much a marketeer as a personality as a game developer. Really. Because
So when people say, but he's the you get direct access to him and unfettered. You're getting direct unfettered access to somebody who will try and sell you on the game he's selling based on things that pop into his head at the last moment, which is not the kind of unfettered access you want as a member of the press. You want to talk to the people who are at the coalface who are making that game, who then say, actually, what Molyneux just told you wasn't true.
Yeah, I mean, like, the kind of access is frustrating. Like, you kind of, often with developers, especially if it's not someone in a senior position, like the problem is, if you get a producer or a creative director or someone at the top level, they can give you an overview of the game, but ultimately they're probably not going to be the person you want to talk to about the small, important decisions that are being made about the game. If you're talking to an individual level designer or an artist or someone like that, they're not going to be the person who tells you the high-level stuff. But the kind of pointless limitations publishers place on what we're revealing today often means that the level designer you're talking to can't talk to you about the thing he's working on that morning. But, she can talk to you about the thing that they worked on 3 months ago that they've kind of forgotten about because it's now press ready. And that is the bigger problem, really. It's not about it's not that there are deep secrets to be revealed. It's just about what people can most interestingly talk about.
I think I think it masks that kind of really tight PR masks the artistry that goes into creating games. That when you talk to the people who are really making things, I always want to talk to them about their discipline, and I want to communicate to the rest of the world why that discipline is, where the skill and the decisions and the interesting kind of influences come into the art they're creating or the way they're programming this particular feature. I want to kind of take that and communicate it to our audience, a big audience, but. You have this PR thing where you've got to hit these pillars, you've got to hit here, they've briefed each individual, and I've had this with always it's totally the bigger, like your Blizzards and Activisions, and you go in and, we're going to a Hearthstone interview, for example, and asking them what decks they liked playing with, just to try and get some insight into what they personally enjoy about the game, and they just wouldn't answer it. It's just do you like the Hunter deck? Do you like this
useful deck? Interviews normally take place in good faith. And so you just ask people about what their job's like. Yeah. And you just assume that they're not pricks because the vast majority of people aren't. But PR is so afraid of the gotcha interview that they ruin it for everybody else.
I don't know that they are afraid of the gotcha interview. I think to some extent they're probably right in thinking that people can't handle the truth sometimes.
And I think that's absolutely,
I remember I was looking through a bunch of a long Twitter conversation about No Man's Sky, the game that you're involved in, Alex. And in a single conversation, they went from somebody saying, "Oh, this looks cool. I bet it's like this. I bet they've got all these kind of things in it. I'd really like it if they did all these kind of things." To, "I bet they don't though." To, "How could they have possibly betrayed me by not including all these things that I just imagined in my head and they clearly promised me in my imaginary mind?"
We've had that go all the time. We're also viewed with suspicion because we genuinely don't want to talk too much about what people will find, because we want it to be something that you will enjoy exploring, and we want people to feel like they're seeing things for the first time, which. Because of the visualization you will, but then things will feel familiar if you're prepared going in, So we've been trying not to talk about it very much, and and people often regard withholding information as suspicious, and kind of it's been really difficult to do.
You have to manage expectations, though, right? I mean, that's the tricky thing. Well, everybody in this room and most of the press, and probably all of our listeners, I imagine, are intelligent enough to be able to, are interested enough in games. There's a huge morass of people out there who probably take the things you say about your game the wrong way, and
Well, I think people also, when you say something's big and expansive, then people put whatever they want from it onto it. And, so therefore, with the thing we get the most is, because you will see other players in it, people are really upset about the fact that, the galaxy is vast to an extent which is kind of difficult to comprehend, and they don't like the fact that they won't be able to find their friends. Because you are going to be a very long time away from them.
Yeah.
But it's not that game, It's not a multiplayer micro.
I think
game.
No, it's because it's made up, isn't it? You've just made it all up.
It's like, I think the problem is often the forces of marketing and PR, especially at large publishers, is quite a general one. And so, critical distinctions about what is and isn't helpful information to distribute is made in a kind of general principled way where the same template is applied to every game that comes out. So what we need to do is break this down into marketable sound bites that we can then ship to the press as a press release. And that is definitely, I'm reading a really interesting blog post on David Gader's blog, who's the lead writer on Dragon Age, because him and his writing team have zero control about what BioWare's or EA's marketing go and subsequently do with their game. And they decided for Inquisition, people like romances in the game, right? So what we'll do is we'll do a trailer series or something. I didn't follow it because I wouldn't want spoilers, but we'll basically itemize that aspect of the game's writing, the fact there are romance options, and we'll kind of do reveals of who's a romance option and who isn't. And he basically was fairly candid about saying, honestly, that's not how I want someone to encounter my story. I would like someone, and Inquisition's interesting for having moments where people who it's far less binary with its relationships than other BioWare games are in terms of characters that you'll get so far with before they'll express not being interested and that kind of thing. So it is about, going into that narrative, hopefully not primed to expect some kind of easily marketed experience from that particular social dimension. But those developers don't have any control over what marketers or PR subsequently pull from the game and try and bullet pointize, I guess. The other thing I was going to say, sorry Tom, go on.
Sorry, I was going to say, it could be, this restricted attitude could be hugely problematic when games are announced too early. So, particularly for something like The Division, is the current standing example where they've simply left a big, huge void, as to the question of what the game actually is, that basically the audience has invented the game in their heads at this stage. And so much of marketing does this, where they announce too early and they can't say anything properly about the game, so the audience invents the ideal game in their head, and inevitably there's disappointment, and inevitably there's controversy further down the line because, the announcement hasn't laid out what this thing is. And I think
the thing is, I'm not sure whether that's a failure, though.
It's great for PR because it generates buzz for 2 years.
Because bad feeling, you want feeling, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah, that's
because you want people to be aware of it.
Also, The Division is going to be in news cycles for twice as long for having announcements that much earlier because people want to talk about it because it looks pretty.
The thing I was going to say is that this, I think, from the other side, is galling to developers as well. And the best example I've got, and I probably shouldn't name them, was an MMO developer that I went out to see, who admitted to me when I was talking to them after the press day was done and we'd all done our interviews. And it had been a really weird scenario for both of us because we weren't able to do the interviews at the studio, so we had to do interviews at the hotel. Because normally, we'd be given a press room to go and sit in for our 15-minute slot to get our interview time. And they had instead got us they'd gotten rooms for all the different interviewees, but they were just rooms in a hotel. And so we'd kind of be ushered in this really kind of weird, through the seedy back corridors of the hotel and sort of ushered into a room with a developer who'd just be sat on a nondescript sofa in a nondescript American business hotel. And we'd talk for a bit and we'd be ushered into the next room along. It was really strange. But not only had it been massively controlled in terms of what they were allowed to talk about, the script had been so tight that the developers had started an internal game to see who could get what keywords, because they'd been given keywords to get into reviews by the PR. But they came up with their own list of keywords that were nonsense. and had a little internal sweepstakes on who could get the most keywords subsequently into print. I can't remember any of the specific words, just getting kind of like nonsense phrases, like, that one really churns the butter or whatever, like, and see who could get it into like which magazines or whatever. And I was kind of delighted to hear that, not because it invalidated about 50% of my interview content, but because it kind of showed that, there was an understanding trying to form between some press and some developers, but that ultimately there was this pointlessly obfuscatory barricade in the middle, marked, please don't spook the stakeholders.
It's funny, I think a lot of developers are actually quite afraid of talking to the press, because they're representing their company, and, who they might have a good relationship or a bad relationship. Either way, they don't want to misrepresent things. And it's kind of scary talking to press. You don't know what they're going to take from what you said. This thing that you've been working really hard on, this thing that you've been sinking all your time into, and you're now out on a limb talking about it, and you don't know whether they like the thing that you're saying or the thing that you're working on. It's like, it's really scary. And doing interview after interview after interview, like, I think developers, like quite a lot of developers, quite like being able to hide behind a PR message because they don't have to have responsibility, and as long as they don't fluff the lines.
Having said that, though, like as a word, like I on several occasions now, even just like a couple of weeks ago, not naming any names, but like got an interview back from a developer about a game, and then I read it and realise that it's word for word almost what appeared on fucking Eurogamer a day ago, or another site a day ago. I literally just don't run it. It's just useless to me. It's like it's out there already, and it's at that point it's just dead air, and it's not PR anymore.
Something that I always find interesting, especially when I started to do trips and to meet developers, is I always noticed there's a correlation between the quality of interviews subsequently and how useful they were to a reader, and whether or not I had been for dinner with the developer. And what order that happened in. Really, and obviously, like, so much of it's actually about ethics and games journalism concerned meals, and what a journalist has eaten, and whether or not having a crisp has somehow hypnotized that journalist into forgetting years of professional critical standards. What they don't realize is actually that kind of, like, that degree of, like, establishing a personal relationship with an interviewee is absolutely fucking vital. Absolutely. Because the reason the PR is there is to protect developers from shit journalists that are going to take a tiny thing and spin it out into a big thing and run a schlocky story that harms them. If you have a chance to sit down with someone and talk as people and talk about literally anything fucking else other than work, often you establish a trust that, subsequently it allows them to open up a bit in an interview because they trust that you are not there to gotcha them, basically. Yeah. And it doesn't ultimately matter who's covered the bill for that meal, whether it's the journalist, whether it's the developer, whether it's a third party, because the point is the trust that's gained from it. Yeah. Like, versus the notion that that's somehow influencing. It's not. It's just a necessity of getting through people's outer defensive.
The hilarious thing about this is that people think this isn't how journalism works in political spheres.
Yeah.
Or any other sphere where, like, journalists always hang out with the people they're reporting on, and responsible journalists are trusted with certain things. Yeah. And then they get the scoops. They get the real information. Because they're not shy talks.
Yeah. Stories to be told. Kyle writes, Dear Chris Thurston, I'm not 100% on this, but my intuition after playing the game a bit is that what I thought was Recitaire, which is the Japanese game about running a shop in a JRPG, is intended to be homophonic with racketeer. From Google, racketeer, a person who engages in dishonest and fraudulent business dealings. Capitalism, ho! Keep mucking that butter, Kyle. I wanted to read this because he's probably right, but also because I've been corrected on that like 3 different times in the history of the various podcasts I've been on, and for some reason it's just the fact that I can't learn. that game is called Racketeer.
Racketeer? What is with
Racketeer?
It's
spelled like this. Reciteer. I always thought it was like tearing a receipt.
Recitier.
I thought it was recitaire.
I only just see it as a shape. I've never tried to make it into a sound.
Like Prince.
Yeah.
Just a shape.
Shuffle, 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 shuffle. Dylan writes, Greetings, podcasters.
That's us.
That is us. I never miss a podcast. Yours is the only podcast I listen to. I wish to know what game has put you deepest into the zone. That zen-like focus that only occasionally comes after 2 beers, and certainly not after 3, where you are undefeatable in complete harmony with the mouse and keyboard and laying waste to every man who comes before thee. What game stands out in your memory having induced that most deeply in you? You are allowed to mention 2 or 3 in fairness to the ones that almost made it, but you must choose one in particular. What game is it? Dylan. No one else gets this?
Yeah, definitely. He's definitely identified something, like a genuine trance state, I think, that exists when you're properly... Like, I got it with Ikaruga, I've had it with a few other things.
Yeah, Res. For me.
Yeah, we were just so
Geometry Wars, maybe, but
completely focused on the thing, and you're just achieving things that you never, like, a few hours earlier you would not have been able to, because you're just so focused on the thing. Totally in tune with the game.
I have this with every competitive shooter I've ever cared about. Like, because I can generally finish in the top third of a shooter scoreboard most of the time and in most games. But that sort of, the movement within that is based entirely on this sort of like fugue state that I find really hard to induce and always have. And it used to really frustrate me when I was a teenager and I was really into Tribes and Quake, and
I remember getting it back in that day, but not for the last decade.
I still do, but like, I think when I was a kid, it was like, I was frustrated because I wanted to be genuinely good, and I felt like I was genuinely good half of the time based on psychological conditions I couldn't quite pin down, which would always express themselves as a combination of Twitch skill and like environmental awareness. Like, that guy's going to run around this corner right now, bang.
I think you probably haven't more recently because you probably play like a much wider set of games and you don't focus on one and excel at it.
Also, I'm old and dying very slowly.
It's true.
I found it with, I used to play Soul Calibur 2 a lot with my friends, and I always played with the same group of friends, and we used to play for like hours. So when you play for that length of time with the same people, you really get to know their habits and their techniques, and when you start, like, for some reason, that metagame about their personality as well as just their movesets, that becomes completely upset. Like, the whole world is like, I'm Mitsurugi. He knows that I'm going to, unsheath my sword for this particular attack, and then you try and fake him out. But that induces for me like a level of concentration that I'd rarely.
Then it's Mario Kart, Ghost.
Oh yeah,
Ghost. What's the name? Ghost House 1, and just spinning around those things is Donkey Kong.
Yeah,
still undefeated among my university set at Pac-Man versus. That's,
on GameCube.
Yeah.
Holy.
Classic game.
The zone is legit though.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. I've had it recently because this is a console story, but we waited once into a bit. The most recent sort of big Destiny PvP event, I maxed out, and I think, and there were moments in that where I was doing it, and I did what I did when I was a teenager, which I'd have music on. I'd like have headphones, despite having like a small amount of audio from the TV, and that always helps. And like, I think the thing that defines that state for me is you don't really realize till afterwards that you were in it, because you finish with some kind of like, a KD of 6 or something, because every kill, every life you're getting, a significant streak, and that's really gratifying. Like,
what kind of music? Is there any particular kind of music?
I have a couple of mixes for it, but like, it's almost always like pop and electronica stuff. Like,
so rhythmic.
Yeah, like, and kind of the poppier, the better. I was actually really thrown off my game by the fact that they changed the Spotify version of Charlie XCX's new album so that it was the censored radio version rather than the original. And I was so annoyed by some of the changes that it killed my KD in like one round of Crucible. Chris problems.
There are some games that surely deliberately target this, like Super Hexagon.
Yeah.
And
you're not going to get this with the standing parable, are you?
No, but with Super Hexagon particularly, the pulsating of the entire level with the music, and that's designed to.
That is about that kind
it's
of
probably
mojo.
just Tetris is the thing, then, isn't it?
It's real though. Ollie writes, in season 3 of House of Cards, and I can't believe this is real, by the way. Like, he posted this on the forum and submitted grabs, and I can't believe this is an actual thing that happened. And this isn't also spoilers for House of Cards if you're worried about it.
Is it? It's not, really.
It's not spoilers, that's what I'm saying.
Sorry,
it's not really spoilers.
Right.
In season 3 of House of Cards, Kevin Spacey reads a review of Monument Valley in a magazine. Despite not normally being a fan of indie games, quote, the review is so compelling that he feels he must try it. He subsequently goes on to hire the writer to pen an autobiography to serve as propaganda for his controversial domestic policies. What do you wish your writing could convince people to believe or do? So, there's a plot point in the new series House of Cards where games journalism is so convincing that it must influence political writing.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Does the writer then have a mini burger with Kevin Spacey at some point? And then agree to, I don't know, give his arms policy 7 out of 10 or something?
Yeah, I don't know. I wish my writing would convince people to read things. Which is the one problem facing all writers, is that nobody reads things.
Good luck with that.
People read what they think they read, and then they
Yeah.
comment based on
Yeah.
that. Actually, that's not fair, because we're just talking about people who actually leave comments. I wish
Yeah.
things I wrote inspired people who weren't normal commenters to leave comments. That'd be cool.
But
The
then,
massive majority of people who don't leave comments.
Yeah.
I just like this, that games are now becoming such normal parlance that they'll appear in large shows like Netflix. And although there is still a kind of hubbub of, oh, they're talking about games, how exciting about it.
It does feel
Like,
rather, hey, so we put Call of Duty in last season and it really
about
hit
Monument Valley?
It was paid for though, wasn't it?
Was it?
House of, well, I don't know. House of Cards is famously
Supported by product placement.
and some of the most blatant product placement you could ever hope to encounter in a serious drama. Like the PSP stuff in season 1 was
that's
extraordinary.
they also have like Pussy Riot in a very prominent role in one episode. I don't know if they're paid for by their record label, their appearance, or. But what I think is,
probably.
well, maybe or maybe not. But I think the House of Cards has a remit as well, just to kind of look at things of the moment and try and, not necessarily in a particularly subtle or clever way, but, try and shuffle this stuff into its fiction.
I never saw him playing Call of Duty on a Vita, Monument Valley, and there's another game he plays as well, isn't there? Is it? Oh, it's Oli Oli or something.
I don't think he can play Call of Duty anymore because he's in Call of Duty now.
Do you really? Yeah, that's a good point.
That's a lot.
Maybe
The moment where Kevin Spacey's playing Advanced Warfare, Kevin Spacey looks back at him.
Yeah, they just can't do it.
that guy looks kind of familiar.
I've always said, never make a deal with your own CGI duplicate.
Come, merry man.
He doesn't see it coming.
Surely Monument, the makers of Monument Valley, wouldn't have shelled out that kind of money.
Doesn't feel like that.
They don't feel like that kind of outfit, but who knows? I mean, they don't feel like
weird
that
to
kind of
name check it, isn't it?
size of outfit.
What's weird about it is Monument Valley is great. And it's beautiful, and it's interesting, and it's tactile, and it's nice. But but it is, and it's like, I can't imagine the editorial someone would write about that would be compelling enough to make Frank Underwood want to hire the guy. Like, I can think of other games where that's the case, but it's a weird one. Like, what did that guy fucking write?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what genre of desperately overreaching game praise was it?
Have you read Polygon? Come on.
No, but it's like,
He really likes Polygon, and he hired a Polygon writer. Brian Crescente is now the President of the United States domestic PR guy.
It's like, how domestic policy helped me learn to cope with having an itchy belly. I don't know, like...
I'm gonna watch the episode, and Brian Crescente is gonna be that guy. Like, I'm gonna substitute the man he hires. So good, Brian.
Man, what a nightmare America we're conceiving.
Absolutely.
I don't know, I think...
Frank Underwood's collecting
hilarious.
Amiibos.
Be great.
I suspect somebody read the stories about Monument Valley almost kind of shakily making its money back, or just, and thought, why not give it a name check? That's what I like to think. Probably not the case. Probably Apple shelled out loads of money. But,
It cuts to Frank Underwood rotating the White House to allow himself to more readily progress through it.
Undiscovered staircases.
Yeah, on the left-hand side.
Murder corridors.
Oh, a kind of Resident Evil set in the White House would be great.
Yeah.
That happened, didn't it?
what game do you
why
think
not?
David Cameron should play?
I'm trying to think of...
Papers, Please.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a good choice.
I think it gives him empathy.
Theme
with
Hospital.
Very good.
Don't shit your pants.
I think it's more Ed Malabon. Ed Malabon? Ed Malabon.
Ed Marley.
Edelweiss Mullaband.
Stop mounting your friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, that's the political
ham-fisted
satire
political.
for the Quick Mobile.
Yeah, that was razor sharp commentary.
That was beer shop.
Yeah. As always.
Anyway.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
That's all the questions we have.
Indeed, it is. You can send us more questions at questions@creatingcrowbar.com. You can send us questions over the Twitter at Creating Crowbar. You can send us questions individually, or just email us, or do other stuff. I don't know what's going on now.
You've forgotten the forum, but...
Oh, yeah, I suppose the forum.
I suppose.
creatingcrowbar.com/forum, and Twitter individually. There you go. Yes. I'm at Marsh Davis, incoherently. Who are you?
I'm Tom Senior at PCG Ludo, LUDO.
I'm Chris Thurston at CTHURSTEN.
And I'm Alex Wiltshire at Rotational. But then why would anybody be asking me questions?
Well, maybe they just want to follow, an eminent member of the video gaming establishment.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Thanks for coming along, Alex.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you,
me.
Alex.
It's been lovely. Thank you.
I still don't understand anything you said about deer.
Yeah, that was amazing.
I think that now you understand the relationship between deers, monocles, and spiders.
And God.
Thank God. Vicars. Disappointed vicars.
Disappointed vicars, everyone. One. 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 One.